The frozen planet of Carthos was silent after the war. Snow covered the broken tanks, burned ships, and dead machines that once filled the battlefield with fire and screams. Cold wind moved across the empty land like a ghost searching for survivors. Captain Elias Walker slowly walked through the snow with his rifle in his hands. His heavy boots left deep marks behind him. Every step felt harder than the last one. The war between humans and the Verrex aliens had lasted for 7 long years. Too many soldiers had died. Too many cities had burned, and Elias was tired of all of it. His face was covered with dirt and small cuts from the battle earlier that day. Only 5 soldiers from his unit were still alive. The rest were gone forever. Behind him, human transport ships searched the battlefield with large blue lights. The command center wanted survivors, enemy technology, and prisoners. But Elias only wanted the war to end. A loud explosion suddenly echoed far away in the snowstorm. Elias quickly turned toward the sound. His hand tightened around his rifle for a moment. He thought enemy soldiers were still hiding nearby. But the battlefield became silent again. Only the wind remained. His radio made a cracking sound. "Captain Elias, report your position," a tired soldier said through the static. Elias touched the device on his shoulder. "Sector 12 is clear," he answered. "No survivors yet." "Understood," the voice replied. "Return to base in 20 minutes. The radio went silent again. Elias looked around one more time before moving forward. That was when he heard it, a tiny sound, very weak, almost impossible to hear under the storm. "Please." Elias instantly stopped walking. His eyes narrowed. The voice came from somewhere behind a destroyed alien tank half buried in snow. He slowly raised his rifle. The Verrex aliens were known for traps and tricks during battle. Many human soldiers had died after trusting fake cries for help. Elias carefully moved closer to the tank. The metal was black from fire damage. One side of the machine was completely torn open from an explosion. Snow had already started covering the inside. The small voice came again, weaker this time. "Please, don't leave me behind." Elias froze. That was not the voice of a soldier. It sounded like a child. For a few seconds he said nothing. The storm howled around him while his heartbeat became louder inside his ears. Slowly, he stepped closer and looked inside the destroyed tank. At first, he saw only darkness. Then 2 glowing silver eyes looked back at him. The small creature quickly moved backward in fear. Elias lowered his rifle slightly. Hiding inside the broken machine was a tiny alien child. She looked no older than 8 years old in human age. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her pale blue skin was covered with scratches. One of her small hands tightly held a broken toy made from metal parts. She was shaking badly from cold and hunger. Elias stared at her in silence. This made no sense. Children were never supposed to be near the battlefield, especially not Verrex royal children. The girl looked terrified, like she expected him to kill her at any second. Elias noticed how thin she looked. She had probably not eaten for days. The child suddenly tried to speak again, but her voice almost disappeared in the storm. "My mother said." She whispered weakly. "She said one human would save me." Elias felt his chest tighten. His mind instantly returned to something that happened 3 days earlier. During another battle, Elias had found a dying alien woman trapped under burning metal. Before dying, she grabbed his arm and whispered strange words. "Protect the child." At that time, Elias thought the woman was confused from pain, but now those same words returned like a shadow from the past. The little girl slowly looked up at him again, tears mixed with snow on her face. "Please," she whispered. "I don't want to be alone anymore." For the first time in many years, Elias did not see an enemy in front of him. He only saw a scared child. Suddenly, a loud warning sound echoed from Elias's scanner device. Red lights flashed across the screen. His eyes widened immediately. Enemy detection drones were moving toward his location fast. The machines had probably detected heat from the destroyed tank. A second alarm appeared on the screen, multiple targets approaching. Elias looked toward the dark snowy hills in the distance. Small red lights were moving through the storm. The drones were close, very close. The alien child looked at him with fear in her glowing eyes. And in that moment, Captain Elias realized one terrifying truth. If the drones found her first, she would not survive the night. The freezing wind screamed across the battlefield while Captain Elias carried the small alien child through the snow. The red warning lights on his scanner kept flashing again and again. Enemy drones were getting closer every second. The child was weak in his arms. She barely had enough strength to hold onto his jacket. Behind them, dark machines moved through the storm like hungry wolves searching for prey. Elias quickly reached an abandoned human supply station, hidden between broken metal walls. Most of the building was destroyed during the war. Only one underground room still had power. He forced open the heavy door and stepped inside. The cold wind disappeared behind him as the metal door slammed shut. For the first time that night, silence filled the room. Dim yellow lights flickered above them. Old food containers and damaged equipment covered the floor. The station smelled like smoke, oil, and rust. Elias carefully placed the alien child near a small heating unit. She instantly moved away from him in fear. Her silver eyes watched every movement he made, like a tiny animal expecting danger. Elias slowly removed his gloves and lowered his weapon to the floor. "You're safe here," he said quietly. The girl did not answer. She pulled her knees close to her chest and kept staring at him silently. Elias opened an emergency food pack from his bag. Inside was dry bread, protein meat, and water. He placed the food near her before stepping back. The child looked at the food carefully, but refused to touch it. Minutes passed in silence. "You should eat," Elias finally said. The little girl slowly shook her head. "Humans poison prisoners," she whispered weakly. Elias looked surprised for a moment. Then he realized alien children were probably taught to fear humans, the same way human children feared aliens. "This isn't poison," Elias replied calmly. "I would not give poison to a child." The girl looked unsure. Her small hands tightened around the broken metal toy she still carried everywhere. Elias picked up another piece of bread from the pack and ate it himself first. The child watched carefully. After a long silence, she slowly reached toward the water container with shaking hands. She drank very fast like someone who had crossed a desert. Then she grabbed the bread and ate small pieces carefully. Elias quietly sat against the wall nearby, for some reason. Watching the child eat made the battlefield outside feel far away. The little girl suddenly looked at him again. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly. Elias did not answer immediately. He had asked himself the same question many times already. Humans and the Variks aliens had spent years killing each other. Millions were dead because of the war. Most soldiers would have left the child behind without thinking twice. But Elias could not do it. Finally he spoke. "Because you were alone." The child lowered her eyes toward the floor. "So are you," she whispered. Elias felt something strange in his chest after hearing those words. The girl slowly leaned closer to the heating unit while snow melted from her torn clothes. For the first time, Elias noticed strange glowing marks on her arm. Thin silver lines moved across her skin like living light. His expression changed instantly. Those symbols were not normal. He had seen something similar years ago in classified military files. Royal markings, only powerful bloodlines carried them. Before Elias could ask anything, his scanner suddenly beeped loudly again. A message appeared across the screen. "Priority order, all units report immediately." Then another message replaced it. "Search for surviving Variks child confirmed. Capture alive." Elias stared at the screen carefully. His heartbeat became slower and heavier. This was no random child. The military was searching for her specifically. A new voice suddenly came through his radio. Cold and serious. "Captain Elias Walker," the commander said. "We know you found the target." Elias instantly grabbed the radio, shocked. "How do you know my location?" he asked. "Your armor tracker never stopped transmitting," the commander answered. "Listen carefully, Captain. The child is extremely important to humanity. You are ordered to bring her to Command Base 7 immediately." Elias looked toward the frightened girl sitting near the heater. She was listening silently. Fear slowly returned to her face. "What happens if I refuse?" Elias asked quietly. The radio became silent for 2 long seconds. Then the commander finally answered. If necessary, your mission authority will be removed permanently. Elias understood the meaning immediately. It was a threat. The transmission ended. The room became silent again except for the sound of weak electricity above them. The child looked at him carefully. They want me because of the marks, she whispered. Elias slowly looked back at her. What are you? He asked. The little girl's silver eyes filled with sadness. My name is Lyra, she said softly, and everyone who protects me dies. The underground station became completely silent after Lyra's words. And everyone who protects me dies. Captain Elias stared at the small alien girl near the heating unit. For a moment, the freezing war outside felt less dangerous than the child sitting in front of him. The yellow lights above them flickered again, casting moving shadows across the old metal walls. Lyra quietly pulled the torn blanket closer around her small body. She looked exhausted, weak, and afraid. But there was something else in her silver eyes now, guilt. Like she carried a pain far too heavy for a child. Elias slowly sat across from her. What do you mean? He asked calmly. Lyra looked down at the broken metal toy in her hands. Its small lights no longer worked. It always happens, she whispered. First my family, then our guards, then my mother. She tried to hide me from everyone. Elias listened carefully without interrupting her outside. The storm continued hitting the damaged station walls. My people said the war started because humans are monsters, Lyra continued softly. But humans were not the only ones hunting us. Elias frowned slightly. What do you mean? Lyra slowly lifted her glowing arm. The strange silver marks moved gently under her skin like living energy. These marks are ancient, she explained. They belong to the first bloodline. Elias had heard those words once before during military training. The first bloodline was considered a myth even among human commanders. Stories claimed ancient alien rulers once controlled technology powerful enough to destroy entire worlds. Most people believed the legends were fake. But looking at Lyra now, Elias was no longer sure. My father protected a secret, Lyra whispered. He discovered something hidden beneath this planet. What kind of secret? Elias asked quietly. Before she could answer, the station lights suddenly dimmed for 1 second. Then every old computer screen in the room activated by itself. Elias immediately stood up and grabbed his rifle. Static filled the monitors, one by one. Strange alien symbols began appearing across the screens. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. They found me, she whispered. Suddenly, a loud metallic sound echoed above them. Clang. Something heavy landed on the station roof. Then another sound followed. Slow footsteps. Elias instantly moved toward the security monitor near the door. The outside camera barely worked through the snowstorm. But he could still see dark figures moving around the station, human soldiers. At least 12 of them. And they were heavily armed. Lyra slowly backed away from the door, panic growing on her face. They came for me, she whispered again. Elias looked at the human squad outside carefully. Something felt wrong immediately. Their armor carried no unit symbols, no official military marks. These were Black Ops soldiers, the kind that erased problems quietly. A voice suddenly echoed through the station speakers. Captain Elias Walker, the cold voice announced. You are ordered to surrender the alien child immediately. This station is now under military control. Lyra grabbed Elias's sleeve tightly. Her small hands were shaking badly. They kill everyone who knows, she whispered desperately. Elias looked down at her frightened face for the first time. He realized she was not scared of aliens anymore. She was scared of humans. Outside, more footsteps surrounded the station entrance. Weapons clicked into position. The speaker voice returned, colder this time. You have 1 minute to comply. Elias remained silent. His eyes moved toward the old station map hanging on the wall nearby. There was an abandoned underground tunnel connected to the lower city ruins. A dangerous route, but maybe their only chance. He looked back at Lyra. What happens if they take you? He asked quietly. The little girl lowered her eyes. My father said they will use me to wake the machine. Elias felt tension run through his body. What machine? Lyra slowly looked up at him again. The one sleeping under the planet, she whispered, before Elias could ask another question. Boom. The main station door shook violently from an explosion outside. Dust fell from the ceiling instantly. The soldiers were forcing their way inside. Captain. The commander's voice shouted through the speakers. This is your final warning. Lyra's breathing became faster and faster. They cannot wake it, she whispered in panic. If they do, millions will die. Another explosion hit the door. Stronger this time, metal began bending inward. Elias quickly grabbed his rifle and emergency bag. Can you walk? He asked. Lyra nodded weakly. Elias moved toward the back hallway leading to the underground tunnels. Warning sirens suddenly activated across the station, red lights flashing everywhere. The soldiers outside had finally broken through the first security gate. Heavy boots echoed above them. They're inside. Lyra cried softly. Elias grabbed her hand firmly. Stay close to me, he ordered. The small alien child looked up at him with fear and hope mixed together. Then both of them disappeared into the dark underground tunnel beneath the ruined station. Just seconds before armed human soldiers stormed into the room behind them. Darkness surrounded the underground tunnel as Captain Elias pulled Lyra deeper beneath the frozen planet. The heavy metal door behind them slammed shut automatically. For a few seconds, the sound of human soldiers disappeared. Only the distant echo of dripping water remained. Emergency lights along the tunnel walls blinked weakly in red and white colors. Most of them barely worked after years of war. The underground air felt colder than the surface. Every breath became visible like smoke. Lyra stayed close beside Elias while holding his jacket tightly. Her small feet moved carefully across the icy floor. She looked terrified of the darkness around them. Elias checked the old map device on his wrist. The underground city below Carthos stretched for miles beneath the planet. Long ago, thousands of people once lived there before the war destroyed everything. Now it was nothing more than empty tunnels, broken stations, and forgotten shadows. Suddenly, distant voices echoed behind them. They went underground. A soldier shouted far away, "Search every tunnel." Elias cursed quietly under his breath. The soldiers were closer than expected. He quickly turned off the flashlight attached to his rifle. The tunnel became darker instantly. "Quiet," he whispered to Lyra. The little girl nodded silently. Together they moved deeper into the abandoned underground city, while the sounds of soldiers slowly faded behind them. After several minutes, they entered a massive underground transport station. Old train tracks covered the floor, disappearing into endless darkness ahead. Destroyed transport ships hung from the ceiling like giant dead insects. Frozen bodies of old machines remained exactly where the war left them years ago. Lyra suddenly stopped walking. Her silver eyes stared toward the darkness on the far side of the station. "What is it?" Elias asked quietly. She did not answer immediately. Instead, her glowing arm marks slowly became brighter beneath her skin. Then she whispered only one word. "Something is alive." Elias instantly raised his rifle and scanned the darkness carefully. At first he saw nothing. Then a low growling sound echoed across the station. Another growl answered from somewhere above them. Elias's expression hardened immediately. Tunnel beasts. Wild creatures created after years of radiation and alien experiments during the war. Most soldiers believed the monsters only existed in rumors. But Elias had seen one before, and he knew how dangerous they were. A shadow suddenly moved across the ceiling beams above them. "Fast, too fast." Lyra gasped softly and stepped closer behind Elias. The growling became louder now. Elias slowly moved backward while aiming his rifle upward. Then the creature finally appeared. Two glowing yellow eyes opened inside the darkness. A huge creature crawled across the ceiling using long twisted limbs. Its skin looked pale and damaged like burned flesh. Sharp metal pieces were fused into its body from old experiments. The monster opened its mouth, revealing rows of broken teeth. Lyra froze in fear. The beast instantly jumped toward them. Elias fired without hesitation. Bright rifle shots exploded across the dark station. The creature slammed into the ground only a few feet away. Its scream echoed through the tunnels like metal tearing apart. But before Elias could relax, more glowing eyes appeared in the darkness around them. At least 6 creatures slowly surrounded the station from every side. They heard the gunshots, Elias muttered. The monsters moved closer carefully, watching them like hungry animals. Lyra's breathing became faster. "We cannot fight all of them," she whispered. Elias quickly searched the station and noticed an old transport train still resting on the tracks nearby. Most of it was damaged, but maybe one engine still worked. "Move!" Elias shouted. He grabbed Lyra's hand and ran toward the train while the creatures charged behind them. The station exploded with screams and footsteps. One monster jumped from above and nearly reached Lyra. Elias turned and fired again, throwing the creature backward into broken metal. Another beast crashed through old glass windows beside them. Lyra cried out in fear as claws barely missed her shoulder. Finally, they reached the transport train. Elias forced open the rusted control door and pushed Lyra inside. "Start the engine," he shouted while firing toward the approaching creatures. "I don't know how." Lyra cried back desperately. The monsters were almost on top of them now. Elias quickly slammed his hand against the emergency power switch inside the train. For one horrible second, nothing happened. Then suddenly the old engine roared back to life. Lights flickered across the transport system as the train shook violently. The creatures screamed angrily and rushed toward them faster. "Hold on!" Elias yelled. The train suddenly launched forward down the frozen tracks. One creature managed to grab the back of the train with massive claws. Its horrible face pressed against the rear window while trying to force itself inside. Lyra screamed and moved away from the glass. Elias fired directly through the window. The creature lost its grip and disappeared into darkness behind them. The train raced deeper into the underground city at dangerous speed. But Elias did not relax, because ahead of them, hidden deep beneath the frozen planet, faint blue lights were beginning to glow inside the darkness, and something ancient was waking up. The old transport train raced through the underground tunnels at full speed. Metal wheels screamed against frozen tracks while sparks flew into the darkness behind them. Captain Elias stood near the broken rear door with his rifle ready. His breathing remained heavy after the attack from the tunnel beasts. Across from him, Lyra sat quietly beside the cracked window. The blue lights outside reflected across her silver eyes. But something about her had changed. The glowing marks on her arm were brighter now. Almost alive, Elias slowly walked toward her. "What happened back there?" he asked carefully. Lyra looked down at her hands nervously. "The underground machines can feel me," she whispered. "They know I am close." Before Elias could ask more questions, the train suddenly shook violently. Warning signals flashed across the control panel. Something had landed on top of the moving train. Heavy footsteps echoed above them. Slow and powerful. Thud, thud. Lyra's face instantly turned pale. "No," she whispered fearfully. "He found us." Elias tightened his grip on the rifle. "Who found us?" The little girl looked toward the ceiling with terror in her eyes. "The Bone General." Almost immediately, a massive blade suddenly pierced through the train roof. Metal exploded across the cabin. Elias grabbed Lyra and pulled her backward seconds before another strike tore through the ceiling again. The train lights flickered violently. Then the roof above them was ripped open completely. A giant dark figure dropped into the train cabin like a falling monster. The entire floor shook from the impact. Elias raised his weapon instantly. But even he froze for a moment after seeing the creature clearly. The Bone General was enormous, nearly 8 feet tall. His black armor looked ancient and damaged from countless battles. Sharp bone-like spikes covered his shoulders and arms. One glowing red eye stared from beneath his cracked helmet, while the other side of his face was hidden behind metal scars. A long energy blade burned in his hand with dark red light. The warrior slowly looked toward Lyra. "I finally found you." His deep voice echoed through the cabin. Lyra stepped backward in fear. Elias immediately moved in front of her protectively. "You're not taking her," Elias said coldly. The Bone General slowly turned his glowing eye toward the human soldier. For a human, "You know nothing," he replied. "She does not belong with your kind." Elias kept his rifle aimed directly at the giant warrior's chest. "Then why are humans hunting her too?" he demanded. For the first time, the Bone General became silent. Then he answered slowly. "Because both sides fear the same thing. The child can wake the ancient weapon beneath this planet." Lyra grabbed Elias's sleeve tightly. "I told you," she whispered desperately. "If it wakes fully, everything dies." Suddenly, the train shook again as it entered a massive underground cavern. The view outside made Elias stop breathing for 1 second. Far below the tracks, an enormous hidden city stretched across the darkness. Ancient towers glowed with blue energy. Giant machines larger than warships rested beneath the planet like sleeping gods. Thousands of strange lights slowly activated one by one across the ruins. The entire underground world was waking up. The Bone General looked toward the glowing city silently. "Your leaders started this war searching for this power," he said. "Humans and Variks destroyed entire worlds trying to control it." Elias frowned. "If that's true, why protect her?" The warrior looked back at Lyra. "Because she is the last key, and keys can either lock doors or open them forever." Suddenly alarms exploded across the cavern. Ancient warning sirens echoed through the underground city. The glowing marks on Lyra's arm suddenly flashed brighter than ever before. She cried out in pain and collapsed to her knees. "Lyra!" Elias shouted, rushing toward her. The entire train began shaking violently. Outside, massive machines beneath the city slowly started moving after centuries of silence. Dust and ice crashed from the cavern ceiling. Then a giant blue beam of light suddenly shot upward from the center of the hidden city. The energy wave spread across the underground world like a storm. Every ancient machine instantly activated. The Bone General's expression changed for the first time. "Fear. No," he whispered. "She connected to the system." Elias helped Lyra stand while the child struggled to breathe. "I cannot stop it," she cried weakly. "The city is awake." Suddenly the train screeched violently as the tracks ahead began collapsing. Huge sections of metal broke apart and disappeared into darkness below. "Hold on!" Elias shouted. The train jumped off damaged rails and slammed sideways into the cavern wall. Metal exploded everywhere. The cabin flipped violently as sparks and smoke filled the air. Elias wrapped his arms around Lyra while the train crashed through broken platforms deep inside the hidden city ruins. Finally everything stopped. Silence filled the darkness except for burning electricity nearby. Elias slowly opened his eyes through the smoke. Pain rushed through his shoulder, across the wreckage. The Bone General slowly stood up from the destroyed metal like an unstoppable monster. But before anyone could move, a gigantic mechanical sound echoed across the ancient city. Something massive was rising beneath them, and whatever had been sleeping under Carthos for thousands of years was fully awake now. Smoke filled the destroyed train cabin while broken metal burned around them. Captain Elias slowly pushed himself up from the wreckage. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he ignored it immediately. "Lyra!" he shouted desperately. A weak cough answered from nearby. Elias quickly climbed over fallen metal and found the small alien girl trapped beneath part of the broken control panel. Her glowing arm marks flashed wildly beneath her pale skin. The light was brighter than ever before, almost too bright to look at directly. Elias forced the heavy metal away and carefully pulled her free. "You hurt?" he asked quickly. Lyra shook her head weakly, but her breathing remained unstable. "The city," she whispered painfully. "It knows I'm here now." Before Elias could respond, the ground beneath them suddenly trembled again. A deep mechanical sound echoed across the massive underground ruins. It sounded ancient, alive. The Bone General slowly stepped out of the smoke nearby. His damaged armor sparked with electricity after the crash, but he was still standing, still dangerous. Elias instantly raised his rifle toward him again. The giant warrior looked toward the glowing city in silence. Then he spoke quietly. "It is too late now." Suddenly, blue lights across the underground city became brighter. Ancient towers activated one after another like waking giants. The frozen darkness around them slowly transformed into a living machine world. Then a massive holographic figure suddenly appeared above the city center. A giant blue face made from pure light. Its glowing eyes opened slowly. Every machine in the city instantly became silent. Lyra stared upward fearfully. "The Keeper," she whispered. The giant hologram looked directly at the three survivors below. Then a powerful voice echoed across the underground world. "Genetic match confirmed. First bloodline detected. Activating memory archive." Suddenly bright blue light exploded around Elias. The world vanished around him instantly. For one terrifying second, he thought he was dying. Then the vision began. Elias suddenly found himself standing inside a completely different world. A peaceful city filled with both humans and Variks aliens walking together. Children from both races played in open parks beneath bright skies. No war, no destruction. No hatred. Elias looked around in shock. "What is this?" he whispered. The Keeper's voice answered from everywhere at once. "The past." Huge ships floated peacefully above beautiful cities, while humans and aliens worked side by side. Then the vision suddenly changed. Dark meetings appeared inside hidden rooms. Human and alien leaders arguing angrily over ancient technology discovered beneath Carthos. "The machine can control entire star systems," one human leader said greedily. "It belongs to us." An alien commander answered coldly. Fear slowly turned into anger. Anger turned into lies, and lies became war. Elias watched entire planets burn as both sides blamed each other. Millions died because powerful leaders wanted control of the ancient machines beneath Carthos. The war was never truly about survival. It was about power. The vision finally ended. Elias dropped to one knee as reality returned around him. His breathing became heavy. "All this time," he whispered, "we were killing each other for a lie." The Bone General lowered his head silently. "Yes," he answered. "I learned the truth too late." Lyra looked close to tears now. "My father tried to stop them," she whispered sadly. "That is why they killed him." Suddenly warning alarms exploded across the underground city again. The Keeper's glowing eyes turned toward the cavern ceiling above them. Multiple war fleets approaching planet surface. Human and Variks forces preparing full assault. Elias looked upward in horror. Both sides were coming for the ancient weapon now. And neither side knew the truth. Lyra slowly grabbed Elias's hand. Her small fingers trembled badly. "If they wake the machine completely," she whispered, "it will destroy every fleet in orbit. How do we stop it?" Elias asked quickly. The little girl became silent. Then tears slowly filled her silver eyes. "There is only one way," she whispered softly. "The system needs a living key." Elias instantly understood what she meant. "No," he said firmly. Lyra looked at him sadly. "My family protected this secret for generations," she whispered. "If I do nothing, billions will die. You're just a child." Elias answered immediately. A child should never carry something like this alone. For a moment, Lyra looked at him silently. Then she asked the question that broke something inside him. "If I die, will humans stop hating us?" Elias could not answer immediately. Years of war, fear, and hatred filled his mind. Then he slowly knelt beside her and placed one hand gently on her shoulder. "No child should have to die to teach adults peace," he said quietly. For the first time since they met, Lyra smiled very slightly, but before another word could be spoken, a massive explosion suddenly shook the underground city. Dust rained from the cavern ceiling as distant weapons fired above them. The final battle for Carthos had begun. The underground city of Carthos shook violently as the final battle began above the planet. Massive explosions echoed through space while human and Variks war fleets arrived in full force. Captain Elias stood in the center of the ancient control chamber. Broken metal, glowing machines, and shifting blue light surrounded him from every side. Lyra stood beside him, weak but still connected to the sleeping system beneath the planet. Her glowing arm marks pulsed like a heartbeat across her skin, faster and faster. The Keeper's giant holographic face hovered above them in silence, waiting for the final command. The Bone General stood nearby, watching everything carefully. For the first time, he was not holding his weapon. Because he understood what was about to happen, above them, the sky of Carthos was no longer visible. Only the reflection of warships burning in orbit filled the dark sky dome of the underground cavern. Elias looked at Lyra with deep conflict in his eyes. "Tell me there is another way," he said softly. The girl lowered her head slowly. "There is no other way left," she whispered. "If I disconnect now, the system will shut down forever, and both fleets will destroy each other above us." Silence fell across the chamber. Even the machine seemed to wait for his decision. Elias slowly looked around the ancient control room. So much power buried under a frozen planet. Power that had already destroyed entire civilizations through greed and fear. He understood now. This was never just a war between two races. It was a cycle of control, betrayal, and fear repeated again and again, and Lyra, a child, was placed in the middle of it all. Elias walked closer to her and knelt down. "You're still just a child," he said gently. "You were never meant to carry this." Lyra's silver eyes filled with tears. "But I am the last key," she replied. "If I don't finish this, everything dies anyway." The Bone General stepped forward slowly. "For centuries," he said quietly, "I trained to protect this secret, but I failed." He looked at Lyra with something close to sadness. "And now a child must finish what warriors could not." Elias suddenly stood up sharply. "No," he said firmly. "This ends differently." He turned toward the Keeper's glowing face. "Is there any way to stop the weapon without killing her?" The giant hologram remained silent for a moment. Then it answered, "Alternate path exists. Life link transfer required. One consciousness must merge with system core to rebalance control." Lyra understood instantly. Her small hands began shaking again. "You mean?" she whispered. "Someone must take my place." Elias looked at her immediately. "No," he said again, stronger this time. But Lyra slowly stepped forward. Her voice became calm. "If I stay connected, I can stop the fleets," she said softly. "But I will never wake up again." Elias clenched his fists tightly. Pain filled his chest like fire. He had lost too many people already in this war. He refused to lose another child. "There has to be another way," he whispered again. But the system lights around them began flashing faster. The fleets above were now firing directly at each other. The entire sky above Carthos was turning into a burning battlefield. Time was running out. Lyra slowly walked closer to the central platform. Then she stopped and looked back at Elias one last time. "You saved me when no one else would," she said softly. "That means I got to be a child, even for a little while." Tears filled Elias's eyes. He stepped forward quickly. "Lyra, wait!" But before he could reach her, she placed her small hand onto the glowing control core. Instantly, the entire system reacted. Blue light exploded across the chamber as energy began flowing through her body. The Keeper's voice echoed one final time. "Lifelink initiated." Lyra's body slowly lifted into the air as streams of light connected her to the ancient machine. She looked at Elias one last time and smiled faintly. "Tell them," she whispered. "Not all monsters were enemies." Then her voice slowly faded. The Bone General lowered his head in silence. Even he had nothing left to say. Elias fell to his knees as the chamber filled with bright light. "Lyra," he whispered brokenly. The system suddenly activated across the entire underground world. Massive energy waves shot upward from Carthos into space. Every warship in orbit suddenly stopped firing. Both human and alien fleets froze as unknown signals entered their systems. Then the truth was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Images of the past, the lies, the hidden betrayal. The real history of the war. Slowly, weapons began to power down. Ships turned away from each other, and silence replaced destruction. The war that destroyed worlds finally ended in one moment of truth. Inside the underground chamber, the glowing light slowly faded. The Keeper's voice spoke softly for the last time. "System stabilized. Life link successful. Guardian preserved." Elias looked up slowly. Lyra was gone, But the machines were still alive outside for the first time in centuries. The galaxy was quiet. No explosions, no war cries, only peace. Years later, on the rebuilt surface of Karthos, children from both human and Verux races played together under a clear sky. A statue stood in the center of the new city, a small girl holding a broken toy in one hand, and a human soldier standing beside her. Elias walked past it quietly every day, never speaking, but always remembering, because somewhere deep beneath the planet, a child still slept inside the light, and her sacrifice became the reason the galaxy finally learned how to stop hating.